Welcome, friends, to Tanked Up, the podcast all about video games and beer. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, here with Lucy.
Hi, it's been a while.
It has been a couple of
Been a
weeks
minute.
since we've hung out. And Aadil!
Mm-hmm.
Hey!
It's episode, I think, 319. At least that's what I've noted down. And we're a beer and video game podcast. We drink some beers, we talk about video games. So let's get into that. It has been a couple of weeks since we hung out, and there's lots of stuff to catch up on. So we'll open these beers, and then maybe we can have a little update from Lucy about her recent travels, her brewery visits. Even if it's 2 minutes, Lucy. You know, it's 2 minutes.
I was like,
I know it was like a
age
month
ago
ago.
now.
It was fucking ages
Yeah.
ago, but we haven't hung out since.
I was like, I haven't been anywhere.
Aadil, why don't we start with you? What are you opening?
I don't know, because I don't know where I put the beer.
Oh,
It's still in the fridge.
It's totally still in the fridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
oh no, is it
Oh,
really?
Shall I go
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, I'll
I'm
be right
ready.
back.
Right. Because I remembered my beer from the fridge, is a patrons project beer from Northern Monk, which I haven't
Nice.
had one of these in ages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're like cranking them out at the rate that they used to. I'm not sure. I've just not picked any up. But this is 4.05,
Okay.
and it is Drew Millwood and Northern Tropics, Northern Monk. It's a dipper.
Nice.
8.3%. It says citra, mandarin, mango, guava, and pineapple.
Okay.
I don't think there's any. I mean, it's got really lovely art. It's like a three-eyed elephant on front.
Oh, nice.
But,
Is it one of those? Normally, the patrons project labels you can peel back.
yeah.
You've got tons of information on the inside about about the patrons.
See how long it's been? That's so clever. Drew Millwood, is it the artist? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in Coventry. Poor guy. At least he grew up in Bolton.
What
Yes,
a move,
he's-
eh? What a move.
Oh, I love this. I haven't done this in. I don't know if I have done this with the new cans with the peel back thing. I'm not sure if I have. I
Oh,
think
they've
it
done
might
it.
have
They've
been
done it
that long.
for ages.
Yeah.
I think all of their it might not be all of their patrons projects, but going back a decent way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's great to have that extra information.
Yeah, it's so pretty. I mean, the art is fantastic. It probably won't come up well on the camera, but
Nice.
Oh, wow.
it's very nice. Yeah. Notes from the brewer. Let's have a look. For this patrons project, we're digging through the extensive archive of past patrons products releases and choosing standout beers to reimagine, reinterpret, or completely reconstruct.
Nice.
So has this been out before?
They just tweaked it a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. Anyway.
Maybe that's why it's
what-
0.5. Maybe.
4.0. Yeah, maybe. Their numbering system is weird to me, but anyway. Way down deep in Holbeck urban jungle. That is London. Anyway, the brewers took a silky base of super pale and flaked oats, added a lot of citra and a little dash of lactose. Then Brino said, "I know. We'll call it Double Jungle IPA." Into that bright and zesty citra IPA goes gallons of guava, plenty of pineapple, and masses more mandarin and mango. Plus, we dialed the ABV ever up so slightly into deep dipper territory for a thicker, fuller milkshake mouthfeel.
Ooh.
So, it's just a lot of fruit.
Yeah.
Fruity boy. Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
that's it.
See if it's like a juice bomb of old.
Seems like it will be.
Mm.
And I'm very thirsty, so I'm happy with that.
Nice. I'm going to open a beer called Thrilling, which is an APA from VarVar Brewery, which are a Ukrainian brewery. I've got a couple of beers from them this week. You can't quite see the art because of my light. Try and turn it that way. It's a man being strung upside down, or a naked man doing a kind of one-legged bungee almost. But it's an APA and it is 5.6%. I can't give you any more information than that because it's all in Ukrainian. If anyone can read that, there we go. It's all on the back in Ukrainian. It was, oh no, the date. This says the date of manufacture was 09/02/22, so back in February. It's not very long ago. It has got lot number. I don't know whether they mean batch number or what that comes out as. But I've got a couple of beers from VarVar. They sent over a big batch from the Ukraine a few weeks ago now, and basically just like in the hope that they could get it over here and flog a load of beer because they're like, right, we can't sell it here. Where can we sell it? Let's try and get it into the UK spaces. And there was a kind of a big concerted effort by the kind of craft beer scene to help them get it over here and get it into various shops and pubs and places like that. So Bottles and Books were stocking them, so I went over and picked a couple up. The interesting thing is, this is a 330ml can, but it's like a looks like a tall boy, but it's a 330, so it's very, very thin.
Oh, it's like a white blob or a Red Bull type.
Yeah, it's like a Red Bull can. Yeah.
Oh.
That's like the crack beers I had recently. It's in like a 400ml can. It's just taller and thinner.
Is that a European thing?
Must be.
Might just be a trend.
Yeah, but potentially a trend that we haven't seen over here yet.
No, the Brits like their tradition too much. Get those filthy Euro cans out of my supermarket.
Aadil, what are you going to drink?
I'm going to start out with this nice and cold Rabbit Pants Black IPA.
Ooh.
It's a 5% IPA. It's a Coolhead and Wild Beer collaboration. A black IPA brewed at Wild Beer Company with Coolhead, a beautiful balance between hot-powered citrus and tropical fruits, smooth dark malts, and a Moorish drinkability. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Should be
black
interesting.
IPAs around.
I do like my black IPAs, and I'm not very familiar with Coolhead.
No. Not me.
New one to me.
Does it say anything on the can about who they are or what they do? Are they
says,
a brewery? Are they something else?
Brewed with our friends at Coolhead, coolhead.fi. So after I pour this, I will look up what coolhead.fi is.
Okay, nice. Fair. So get pouring and we'll come back to you, Lucy, for the Northern Monk Patrons Dipper.
It looks like just a thick block of yellow.
Yep. It's like custard almost.
Yeah. Very thick. Completely opaque. Not much of a head. Probably, yeah, just I don't think it poured with one either.
Mm-hmm.
It very much looks like fruit juice, and it smells like fruit juice. Definitely getting the mango first of all.
Yeah.
And then have just smelling it a bit more. You can just get in that mango as well. But I'd say the guava is definitely the most potent smell.
Right.
But yeah, it smells lovely. Just like tons of tropical fruit in it.
Just what you want.
Oof.
That's good. That's good. Quite sweet.
Okay.
I think the lactose is you can definitely taste the lactose. It's got a bit of like slightly cloying, slightly mouth coating like kind of texture to it, which I think the lactose is doing, and sort of like this very ice creamy kind of taste to it as well. But yeah, it's probably a bit more sweet than I like my beers, but and definitely more on the milkshake kind of side rather than like even your typical juice bomb from like a few years ago, which were very like fruity, but still had a bit of bitterness, bit more of that alcohol come through.
Yeah.
This is very much we're leaning into that milkshake kind of aspect, but yeah, really got a really thick body as well, just so you're not really getting the it tastes less and less like a beer the more I sip it,
right,
which is probably not what I wanted. I mean, I'm going for a dipper, so what do I expect? But I probably, I had a big dinner, so it's like I probably wanted something a bit with a, bit more carbonation, a bit more bubbles, a bit more beery kind of thing. But yeah, if you love, your dippers that straight into that kind of like milkshakey kind of ice cream pale ales kind of territory, then this is that. But I wouldn't say that I thought we've gone past this trend because we haven't. But it's like probably just wanting something a bit more beery. But
Yeah, that's fair.
but as like a bit one of those beers, it's very good at what it does because it has a ton of fruit in it, ton of sweetness, and yeah, that thick body that gives it a lot of heft. And more and more I speak, it's like starting to feel that warming alcohol sensation as well. So it seems a bit weird. Like you'd think you'd have this in like the summer when you just want like refreshing fruit, but with that, what was it, 8.5%? 8.3% ABV. It's like you'd have one of these and you're done. Maybe it's your end of the day in the garden kind of beer, but
Sure.
yeah, it's very good at what it does, but just not what I'm looking for
Not what
in
you want.
beers now,
Yeah,
or what
yeah, that's
I
fair.
wanted this evening. But
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, this could definitely last me the whole evening because it seems like one you savor and sip on over time. Because knocking this back is just you'd probably just be KO'd. Yeah, it's alright. It's nice.
Good.
I think I like the artwork and the can more than its contents. But yeah, it's still good. It's still
That's how they
really
get you.
fruity.
That's how they get
Yeah.
you. Make it really appealing to look
Yeah.
at.
At least it's not. They didn't go for like a milkshake beer or ice cream beer, and it's just flat.
Yes.
At least they
Yeah.
went for it, and they've got packed so much fruit into this. So yeah.
Cool. Fair. So the VarVar, thrilling APA, very light nose, but it's a lot of grapefruit. Poured with a much bigger head than shows now, but that's dissipated quite quickly. You on the camera you can't quite see, but I can see my fingers just through, so it's incredibly hazy, but you can see just a little through it. Nice sort of orange, a little bit of amber to the colour there. Oh wow, it's a lot flatter than I would have thought from the carbonation that came out of the can. But again, a big hit of kind of grapefruit straight off the bat. But with it being flat, that's kind of almost all you get. There's this big grapefruit hit, and then a nice piney bitterness flowing in lovely from the grapefruit. But those two kind of flavours go together very, very easily. Flow off of each other very, very easily. I'd love to know what's in this beer, rather than not being belligerent and illiterate in foreign languages and not knowing what anything is in here. But it's not quite one note, but it is almost one note, and I think that would be fine if this had a little bit of kick to it, had a little bit of fizz to it. It wasn't quite as flat. That one note, that big grapefruit flavour into the bitterness would go down a little bit better. It's just a bit too flat for me, I think.
When was it brewed, out of curiosity? Given that this was like shipped here
in February.
Okay, so this isn't like a, because it came to the country kind of in a rush. I was wondering if it was maybe like less fresh stock that might have.
It's something. It's like 7 weeks old, something like that. 6 or 7 weeks old.
Yeah.
So
it's brewed. It is brewed to be flat or flatter than you would like.
I say
presumably
it's probably it's longer than that actually. It's like 10 weeks old actually. But even so, yes, it's probably brewed to be flat unless something happened to all of them on the way over. Because again, as I say, when I clicked the can and poured, the head rushed up and fizzled around at the top quite nicely. But yeah, a flatness in the actual mouthfeel. But it feels like it wants to be carbonated. So when you take it that first sip, you can kind of sense, there's going to be some carbonation here, and it just goes, and flattens out
Yeah.
very, very quickly.
That's a shame.
There's a few.
I mean, tons of like Eastern European lagers are just very crisp and very carbonated. So maybe it just hasn't lasted the journey
it's
very
still
well.
got a hint of crispness to it, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not quite. It hasn't fully lost its kind of freshness, I would say. But which again makes me think that, as you said, Aadil, it's kind of maybe brewed to be a little bit flatter, perhaps, because it still has a bit of a crispness. It's got a freshness to it. It just doesn't have that zing, that carbonated kind of hit to it as well.
Right.
And it almost feels more like you've got a slightly flat lilt than. We come back to lilt. We know what lilt is, but lilt probably hasn't been produced for about 30 years.
Really?
I don't know. Can you still buy lilt? You never see it anywhere, do you?
I don't drink fizzy drinks other than beer, so
Well, I mean, I don't either. But I buy Lucozade occasionally, and lilt ain't anywhere near it. But it's kind of like that.
It still exists, I think.
Yeah.
At least you can buy it on the internet.
Well, yeah, everything exists on the internet. There's a few more notes coming through it the more I drink. A little bit of citrus in there as well, a little bit of sort of lemon too. But it's not doing a huge amount. And I'll leave it there, I suppose, until final thoughts. Aadil, we'll come to you then for the Black IPA.
So even when I cracked it, I did get a nice set of sort of tropical aromas. It poured with, I would say, a finger and a half of head almost, like to the point where I thought maybe I mispoured. But again, much like you can see it now, much like Ben's, the head dissipated really quickly. It doesn't even have, like, it's got gaps. It doesn't cover the whole surface area. So it looks more remarkably like cola than the Black IPA usually does. It's also I would say there's an interesting slightly burnt malt on the nose, but then there's this that burnt is coming closer. It's almost coffee like now. But there is this lovely fruitiness on top of that. Very interesting, and you'd think that doesn't work, but it does, just because they're both pretty subtle, hence me putting my entire nose in the glass. It's a bit thinner than I was hoping. Mouthfeel wise.
I think that's not the downfall of black IPAs, but they do tend to be a little bit thinner for what you kind of expect from the flavors.
I think again, we've talked about this before, but yeah, it's the fact that they bring all those malty flavors forward. They're also dark, so you're sort of in the mindset of thicker, more viscous beers, but it's still an IPA.
Yeah.
Those malts are very nice, lightly roasted, and then it finishes really crisp. That wetness actually helps the finish feel crisp, like the thinness of the beer. Now that I've got the finish going, it's got, again, a slight light passion fruit almost, like just a light fruitiness. Sort of coming to the forefront of my mouth, while the top of my mouth has still got the lingering sort of burnt, slightly acrid, burnt maltiness. But again, very not like you would find in a stout or a porter. Like, these are very light notes. They're just the notes. So it's not a boisterous beer at all, but it does have these strong flavors, and the whole package is really interesting. Like, these are things I would normally say, maybe not, but actually the interplay, because they're all kind of reserved at the same level. They're well balanced with each other. So it's like, yes, it's a little light. Like, I have to that maltiness is interesting, but it's like, it's back here a bit, and like the slightly the tropicalness is like takes a while to notice because it's quite light. That doesn't sound great. But actually, because it's thinner, because it's less viscous, everything is coming at the same sort of level, and it's really quite good. This is going to be one of those beers where it's like, in theory, I could sip this, but I think I'm going to pound through it real quick. because I'm really interested in these flavors, and that balance is really exciting. So I just kind of want, and like a lot of it is on the taste and not the finish. Like that interplay between that slightly acrid maltiness and underneath it this like nice bedrock of like tropical. It's such an interesting interplay that it's just like, oh, I want to taste that again, even though I still have that maltiness and that tropicalness in a different way on the finish. It's like the really interesting taste that I kind of want to keep tasting, and because it's light, I can.
Yeah.
I won't feel bogged down by just reaching for it for another sip, but also I could easily be like, I'm feeling thirsty, take a sip. Yep, this is watery enough that I'm not like, I should probably not do this. So we'll see how long this lasts.
I mean, being 5% helps that. Whereas me, 8.3, and I'm like drinking through pulp.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is Coolhead is Finnish, hence coolhead.fi. And they said their website is really nice, well designed, but they advertise mouthwatering sours, juicy IPAs, and velvety imperial stouts.
Okay.
Coolhead is all about Nordic and exotic clashing. In our beers, you can taste the clean, crisp, and minimalistic notes resembling the Nordic nature, but also the fresh, colorful, and exciting taste of the tropics. I hadn't read the blurb until I had given you the notes, but I feel like this beer is doing. You rarely do get the paragraph that directly, but it does. I like that crisp and low key, but complicated. It's very complicated. It's very interesting. Yeah, this. I would try and track more beers by them down. I'm now curious because I'm just curious what the Wild Beer versus Coolhead influences on this beer that I'm really enjoying.
Yeah.
Right, given that the Coolhead vibe is apparently the things that I've noticed about this beer, would it be more so, less so? Anyway, yeah, I'll keep an eye out for Coolhead.
Nice. Cool. So let's launch into our. No, we're not going to launch into our gaming chat. Lucy, we're going to launch into what you've been up to, the little beery places, little joyous trips that you've been on over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, first week in April, went to little Earth project down in Suffolk. I've already forgotten the specific place.
The middle of nowhere in
It
Suffolk.
absolutely was. They're having a beer festival down there this summer, so if you can make it there, I mean, they've got camping. Ben, you went camping, so
Yes.
Drag the family.
Now well versed in camping with the family.
Yeah. They got a camping site on site. We stayed at the little lodge that was there. And yeah, it was really nice. It was nice because nobody was there. So it was like having our own little private bar and fireplace, and yeah, the beers were great. I was just happy just sipping on them all day, and probably like the best charcuterie board I think I've ever had in my life. That's what I want more of. That's what I fantasize about. That's why I'd take the 3-hour trip down to Suffolk for. Because you can get their beers that just I don't think they're that common that you see them around. I mean,
you might see sort of 2 or 3 or something in the bottle shop.
Yeah, and quite pricey usually. So yeah, it was just nice just going there, drinking it straight from source.
My bad.
I think the favorite beer that I had was a stock ale that they it's from 2019. I think they aged it for 2 years. And I think it was meant to be about 9% or something like that, but it just went down so easy, and it's like if I wasn't afraid of just being legless by the end of the day, I would have started with that and I would have just drank nothing else. But it's like, okay, I'll wait until it's like 8 o'clock before I start drinking this. But yeah, just if you ever go, just go. Know in mind that it is in the middle of nowhere, so either stay sober so that you can drive, or don't go anywhere because taxi will cost you. If you find one, yeah, it's like we're not in Birmingham no more, Toto. There's no Uber. Yeah, but yeah, the few people who walked into there. Came and had a drink. Just all lovely people though.
Nice.
So, yeah, and the bar staff were really nice and passionate about all the beers and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was just a nice little day, and it's relatively cheap if you have one of the lodges, depending on when you go. Obviously, I mean the price is going to be more, and the availability probably less around summer, especially around the time of the festival, which I think is in July or something.
Okay.
But yeah, they've got other local breweries around there. I think are Ampersand and maybe Burnt Mill, one of them. But yeah, so it's like, maybe go there, how to stay somewhere like maybe a bit closer to the coast and check out the breweries over there, and I don't know, Felixstowe, look at all the cargo and trucks. If that's your thing. Yeah. But yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
look at all the badly managed traffic from Brexit and yeah.
But, I mean, it must be something else, Lucy. You've got to be mistaken. It can't be Brexit.
It's got to be.
Got to be something else.
Just the way
they're all stopping off at Little Earth Project too much for a beer, and then taking too long to drive to where they need to be. That's the problem.
Don't blame them. No, but yeah, really nice little place. And yeah, just super easy. If you're just like, I think it's minimum 2 nights you have to stay. But yeah, if you're just someone who loves beer and you can just go down, do that, stay on site, don't have to walk more than 30 yards to the lodge, and then you're at the place drinking beer. So yeah, if you're like me and don't do anything else other than drink beer, it's perfect.
Good. Didn't you have another little trip? Why do I think you've been out twice?
I don't think I've been anywhere new.
Have you been outside twice?
I've been outside, but I just think to my regular haunts like Burning Souls and stuff like that. I don't think I've been anywhere.
I in my head you went somewhere else as well.
No, I haven't been. No.
I'm just making shit up. I'm just sat here thinking, Lucy gets to go out all the time. I don't get to go nowhere.
I know.
You were camping for half a week.
I can just decide, like, if I want to come down to Bristol, I'm just like, do I have any kids to look after? Do I have to sort out childcare? No. I can just go.
Exactly, as you are doing this weekend for the East Bristol Brewery Trail, when we're all going to get to actually hang out and go out for a beer.
Yeah, when was...
Hold on.
The last
Bill's coming? You never told me he's coming. I'm not going there.
Yeah, last time I was in Birmingham, I offended Lucy. We've just been on polite terms ever since for the sake of the podcast.
That's why we didn't record last week.
Yeah, Lucy's like, I don't know. I'm kind of sick of this asshole. Can we just take a break? Very plausible. Wouldn't be the only woman who said that recently.
Dear. Well, to hell with them.
Absolutely.
How can we not love Aadil?
Exactly.
Things are complicated. It wasn't animosity. I just liked the joke. Anyway, I was going to say a thing. Yeah, what I was the last time we all were around here in Bristol, right? Last time the three of us were together was in Bristol, right?
Yes.
Was it when Ben passed out on the couch?
Yes.
Was that the night?
Mm-hmm.
That was like a million years ago.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago. It was
pre-pandemic. Right?
Yeah. Was that a festival?
Oh, it was.
Or was it in the summer in between?
Was that when we went to Left Hand Giant?
Oh, we did go to Left Hand Giant.
I think that's when we.
It wasn't the couch day. We've seen each other since.
Have we?
I think.
I thought it was the couch day.
No, couch day was the beer festival, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't it?
Couch day was the beer festival. Definitely.
You sure?
I thought this is
scintillating stuff for the podcast. Yeah, I was just thinking that as I glance over at the Twitch stream. And like, oh look, we have viewers. But yes, not anymore.
We'll go with my opinion because I'm the youngest and the one with the best memory. Therefore, so I'm sure it was when we went to the Left-Handed Giant.
Yeah, I think so as well.
But yes, we get to hang out again. It's the East Bristol Brewery Trail, so next week we will be chatting a little bit about that as well as games, which we will launch into now then. Aadil, we'll come to you first. I don't know how many games you've got to chat about. I know you streamed something this week.
Oh, yeah, I have too many games actually because it's
Ooh.
been because we didn't end up talking about Winter,
No.
which I streamed a few weeks back, and then Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga.
Oh shit! I mean, that's almost like a topic in itself, really, isn't it? 'Cause I
Yeah.
know you're kind of mid-review-ish sort of.
Yeah, so that one I might hold back on,
Mhm.
except to say, well, it's Lego, does what you want.
I
It's
mean,
very big though. Uh, I will say that.
how
And then
many
what did I?
movies is it? Is it?
It's all
Oh,
9.
9.
oh, really?
And
Oh,
then
Christ! No wonder
the
there's
code I got included characters from DLC characters, I guess, or bonus characters from Solo.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, we more Star Wars movies. That's what this game is.
Oh, Lord.
It's
I
when
mean, I need
the
stories
first
about the
character pack
friendship,
is like
but
a Mandalorian one as well and stuff, isn't it? Or pre-order
Oh, yeah,
bonuses
I
with like
got those guys too.
Mandalorian stuff.
Yeah, I have the Mandalorian. Oh, by the way, the Mandalorian, when you play as him, there's a little floating Grogu who comes behind you.
Oh, nice. That's very
Oh,
good.
it's very good. What was the other game I played? What did I play this week?
Skábma.
Skábma. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I just want to talk about Winter and Skábma this week.
sounds like
Win-
a ska band.
Yeah, kind of.
Samba.
So Winter is a game.
I thought you were going to say it's coming. But yeah, okay.
It was a couple weeks ago, but it did. I ended up not streaming the full 2 hours because there wasn't enough game to justify, really.
Oh, okay.
So it's in early access, right? So like that happens, although there's almost no. So it's like a build your base kind of tower base village defense sort of 2D scroller.
Yeah.
And it's got really nice sort of aesthetic. It's in sort of mythical Norse-ish thing, but you ride a rabbit to move around. And it's like 2D pixel arty, sort of, or like 16-ish bit pixel art.
It looks like that Kingdom Two Crowns.
Oh, Two Crown. Yeah, Kingdom's great.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
So they say face mythical creatures from ancient mythologies, face to face, create an army and fight back before winter swallows you. The big problem, and you can watch this on the VOD that's on the YouTube, is you get no instructions, and then you have to dig in the menu to find the control schema, and it's like not even the full screen, and it's like a bunch of pictures, and they've chosen a really hard to parse runic script to indicate what the things are, but it just sort of has small pictures of like and arrows, and it turns out it's like, so I guess you use a diamond to upgrade a guy into a farmer, and then a farmer into a guy with a sword, and then a guy with a sword into a guy with a scythe, using diamonds every time, sometimes 3, and then all this other stuff. But you can't parse the words, so it wasn't clear how the diamonds worked, and like it starts and like diamonds fall into a pot above your head, but you only have so many of them, and it turns out and to make buildings do things, there's very faint red dots above them that you have to fill with the diamonds, but you only have a limited amount of currency, and you can't. And there happens to be a thing that's a mine that doesn't look like a mine visually, that if you put a diamond in after a certain amount of time, it'll give you 3.
Right.
But you have to figure that out all by yourself, which is fine-ish except it took like 10-15 minutes to even notice some of the spots where you could pay for, and then you could put money in. Some of them have like 5 spots, and of course you're only making money 2 at a time, basically, right? Because first you want to recruit your people and make warriors, because otherwise you will die within 10-12 minutes of the game. So you have to spend all your money recruiting people and buying axes to make them into that, but you have to figure that out over a lot of effort. And then it turns out the guy with the scythe isn't an uber warrior. You need one of him to build things. So even if you've saved up money to put into the spot that asks for 5 things, and you can't get them back, they're just there, they're locked in. So I thought I was like, I don't know, what is this? Maybe it's fences, so I'll put some money on either side. So then I just couldn't do anything. And then if you explore, you find more men sort of wandering about, and you can drop money on them and they'll run to your village, but then they'll need to be bought an axe. And then there's bad guys who slowly come in, and your guys kill them. And then the snow falls, and then if the snow's fallen for long, as far as I could tell after like 5 game overs, after the snow's fallen long enough, the game ends because winter came. And it turns out one thing I did discover is you could go all the way to the right of the map, and you would pass like a fairy who did a thing. Who knows what that did? But it took some of my money. And then you get to the guy who looks like the guy in the narrated cutscene, which you can skip, but there's no skip button. And it's like 5 minutes of exposition dump. So you just click around like mad. At some point, I like glitched through and got out of the intro because I had lost 3 times. Anyway, you get to see the bad guy, and he has 3 red dots faintly above him, so he takes money. So I gave him 2 coins because I figured once I give him the 3rd one, it probably stops winter from coming. And then when the snow started falling, I booked it across to him, and I died on the way. The game over, and I had to start again. That was the last time. I was like, look, all of this was like bang your head against it / pure luck / I'm still not sure that's how it worked, and there's not much of a loop there anyway. Like I couldn't even get to the point where the scythe guy finished building the thing that cost 5 and it didn't seem to matter. Like if I just tried to accelerate that thing, I would lose quicker because my guys weren't killing those sort of weird snow monsters that slowly walk towards the village would just blow up. So then I had to do it slowly, but then winter would come and I couldn't make money fast enough to pay off the guy, and it was just like, nah. Like I'm visibly frustrated. It takes a lot, but also I'm telling you a whole bunch of things about the game that the game did not tell me at all. And there wasn't a real gameplay loop for me to feel like I was discovering them. It was just, I'm streaming this game. We said we'd cover it. Otherwise, I would have quit probably after half an hour.
Yeah. Okay,
So there's a chance that it like gets better later, but I actually think it's just not ready for early access.
Oh, yeah. Are they trying to be obtuse because it's like you wanted the community to figure things out, like say Minecraft in early days, or
I don't.
Or is it just
I don't
just
think so
on the
because it's just the mechanics do seem pretty simple, but also I think it's just like it's too early in development. Like someone hasn't told them
yeah.
like those red dots, because some of the buildings are in front of trees, and then like the background has trees, and then they're almost impossible to spot that you can put money into that. And there's like the fairy lady. I ran past her several times before I realized I could pay her to do something. I still don't know what she does. I'm fine with not knowing what she does and having a run or whatever. But also, it's not like a roguelike. There's no carryover. It's just you lost the game. I don't know why. Start again.
Yeah, that's a bit frustrating. But it seems like something can be tweaked with more development time rather than a complete change in like the philosophy of the design or something like that.
It's very pretty, and like it's clearly a small team. Just judging by like the voice actor who reads the book that is the exposition, seems like it's not someone who's hired as an actor. It seems like someone who is doing the voiceover because someone needs to, kind of thing. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's in early access, so hopefully it's going to get. There's more development to come, but I just don't think it's worth. I think they have unwittingly done themselves a disservice by releasing it at this state. And if you look at the Steam reviews, you'll see similar sentiments from other people. Okay. Like it's just not like it's not quite there for people who aren't paid QA testers, you know.
Yeah, I like Kingdom 2 Crowns, the little bits of it that I've played. So this seems like it's trying to do that. So
yeah, I think it is. It's just sort of not. Yeah,
not quite there. Yeah. So maybe play Kingdom 2 Crowns whilst.
I mean, I don't know whether can you still get just classic Kingdom. Because I know Kingdom again was a game that kind of updated itself and changed slightly. In 2 Crowns, I think, was then a co-op version of Kingdom. And then there was like New Grounds or something like that as well, which was I don't know whether it was an expansion or something. But yeah, Kingdom's a very well established, very well tested game.
Yeah, I think that's the one I mean. Rather than I just see it on the box art, just Kingdom 2 Crowns now. But yeah, when it was originally came out, Kingdom. Yeah.
I definitely have Kingdom in my Steam library. Kingdom Classic. It's called now. Kingdom Classic.
Oh, okay.
Which is the original game, and then I've got Kingdom New Lands as well, which is a standalone game.
Yeah, because wasn't it one a sequel?
Yeah, Newlands must have been.
Yeah, I
A
think
sequel.
Newlands was the sequel, and then there was some DLC,
Maybe.
and then Two Crowns came out. I believe that's how it worked.
But I mean, these are back in like 2017.
Yeah.
So you would think that if we've got a game that's kind of like this already, and people are sort of like 5 years later trying to go, well, we've got this game that's kind of in excess. We want to make it a little bit different to what it is, but there's already kind of a good base to be able to work on. But maybe this developer is just figuring out how to do all of those different things and trying to differentiate it from its closest competitor, which again, as we say, is like 5 years old now. So there's definitely space for a new game in that vein, in that area. But yeah, a shame that it's a bit pre-early access, almost. But what about Skábma? Skábma Snowfall. Is that what it's
Yeah, so this is we were offered a code, and I kind of didn't want to. I'm gonna find it now. Skábma. Sorry, I just can't look it up because of the accent on the A.
Yeah.
So Steam makes it hard to find. And basically it's like part of the whole thing is it's traditional Sami, like beliefs and mythology. And so I was like, oh well, like that's the big deal here is we've got the Sami in the north which I mean I've grown up with Inuit culture, so I'm familiar with the struggles that often happens with First Nations or Aboriginals or indigenous species. Well, that's really terrible, Aadil. Peoples and being taken over and colonized and trying to hold on to like your beliefs and your way of life in the face of the world pushing you around. And sure enough, that's kind of the theme of this. So it's there. So I'll just read the blurb because I think so. The rhythm of nature is in danger. You are Ailu, a young Sami whose ordinary reindeer herding days are turned into an adventure. Learn the old ways of the Nuaides Sami healers. Harness the powers of the Nuaidi drum and the familiar spirits to fight against a disorder spreading across the land. It's a third-person adventure game narrative, and it's placed in sort of you meet a French sort of scientist dude. So like clearly there's like the big start of the game basically is you fall asleep, a reindeer escapes, you have to go track it down, otherwise you're being threatened by your uncle because you're an orphan because it's a video game, to be kicked out of your small tribe, which is like 5 people, right? This family unit, this nomadic family unit. And then you go up a mountain and you find it, and then an explosion happens, and you see off in the distance a bunch of like log cabins, like not like your huts. It's clearly like the European colonizers and explorers, and there's an explosion that happens, an earthquake, and the part of the mountain you're on collapses, and you land on the reindeer. It's dead, and you survive. But you also you wake up and you find you're woken up by this spirit, and it's one of these Nuaides who was in this cavern, and they have their magic drum, and they say it's time. I've been waiting so long, and you have to learn how to become one of these. Meet the 4 familiar spirits, and do this. And so you navigate through. You find out when you drum, it creates light, so you can navigate through this this weird cave system you didn't even know existed in the mountains. But then also like you end up, the first adventure is like your cousin goes missing, and you can see that when you use the drum, footsteps, they're glowing blue, so you can track them. And I've met one of the familiar spirits, and now I can have a jump dash, which is like Metroidvania style. I can get across to other areas. And so presumably I'll have 4 abilities by the end. But throughout the whole thing, the whole point is like the Nuaides drums were all destroyed by the colonizers, and like when your uncle sees you have it, he's like, you really like, I'm done with you, but especially because you have that drum, it's just going to get us in trouble. So you get a sense of what, like, I really like how it's not a narrative of like a guy coming in and be like, oh, the drum. It's really well written in the narrative and the spot and time they've picked, right? Of like when the explorers are coming and they've got industrialized, but not like super advanced, and your family is struggling with like they're being on the edge of where your nomadic tribe lives, but like you interact with the nice scientist who's just looking into the plants and stuff. But they even your collectibles are like the bunnies your little cousin lost, but also the notebook pages of Jean. And what's interesting is you um as a player can read the notes, but the Ailu even mentions how he can't read to the guy when he says, "Can you pick up all my pages?" Which I think is a really interesting thing because you're learning more about the world that specifically the protagonist isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But but those things are very much the like he's lorn, and on the back of all his pages he's writing poems to the lady he wishes he didn't leave to come on this trip. But he's also talking, he's also documenting species, and then you every so often there like as you wander around, anything that's interactable, a little white rectangle sort of pops up, little icon pops above it, so you still have to explore, but you know immediately if there's a thing to use. And sometimes it is usually just dialogue, like your thoughts, but sometimes it's like, oh, I really miss the buttercups, but ever since John like planted these new flowers, they haven't come back since last year, which is a really nice way of pointing out like the hit to the ecosystem bringing new plants have right without making it explicit.
Yep.
So it's that tightly written where
Mhm.
you're if you want to pay attention to what the overall like impact of the colonizers on them are, it's all these small things. It's not the main plot point. The main plot point is like, I don't know, I mean, I'm only about a couple hours in, but it's you're on this journey and your family has their problems, but you're sort of, these are all incidental, but it's the main theme, right? And the fact that there's a blight in the land and that the river water isn't, well, like the lake water is clearly been polluted, because you're like, we now fill our water at the waterfall because it gets tainted by the time it gets to the lake. And you're like, ah, right, the lake that's also where all these guys colonizers have been, and they're clearly mining or something. But the blight is like actually visualized by like black warbly grossness all over things, and sometimes you can't see it unless you use the drum. But also, since I got the special power from the owls, I can dispel it. So there's this interesting interplay of like the mechanics are clearly calling on like being, the power of the Noidis is sort of fighting the pollution in a way that makes sense in the sort of in the mythological framework, and also in the game. So it's I wanted to see it just because I think it's important to elevate these things and talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's also just a fun adventure game, and like I said, it's really well written in these like, the narrative is not. It could easily be like, the bad guys came and they burned, they forced us away, and then but like because it's set at that time, the village has lost a lot of their know-how. So like the grandmother character knows some of these things, but the grandfather knew more, and so you hear some stories that you vaguely recall, but no one really knows what the Noidis like powers were or whatever, because by the time you grew up, the culture had already kind of been trampled.
Mhm.
And that's such an interesting point to choose
Yeah.
to write the place the story.
Mm.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, so it's really good. It's I don't know if I've done it justice.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
game wise, sorry. It's the puzzles are like, it's an adventure game. It's not, you can fall off cliffs and die. I immediately found a spot on a bridge that I wasn't supposed to walk, because I boundary broke and then hung in the air for a while, and then it respawned me, and I was like, oh, good coding, but like in the sense that I'm not stuck. But because I'm still me, right? But like so you have to have some mild platforming and stuff, but it always respawns you. Basically, you are kind of stuck with like, but it's kind of, it respawns you with the blue glow from the drum, so it's as if you're being like, this newfound power and this thing you're trying to understand is protecting you. But it means that you like have to do mild platforming, and it really does reward exploring. Like I said, the plot was pretty like, and then this happens and this happens, but most of the entertainment of the game is going like trying to find other things, like the missing rabbits, the Great Hair Escape is the thing. It's got it's wet. They've good humor on the one side, and then Jean's papers tend to be sort of poking fun at his like lovelorn poems, but also bringing up a lot of the like what the role of someone who wasn't a minor but was there would be as well. So that's like where the meat of the narrative is coming from, which means you can kind of just like someone younger could easily play this game, and miss some of the stuff because they don't have they don't know about endemic species and species invasion or all those things. For example, they wouldn't pick up on that one line maybe. But they could easily play the game, and like when you get the dash power, it's great because you can jump in the air and zoom. You know, it's fun. It's it's tightly coded in that sense. So there's a game there. But the narrative is it's not hard to find these things. I think I probably spent more time than I need thanks to Elden Ring looking in around random corners. But yeah, it's so I like the way that it's doing both those things really well, but you could easily not do it all if you weren't interested.
Yeah. Nice. I think it kind of from what you're sort of saying reminds me a little bit about Kena, which a bunch of people loved from last year.
I was thinking of that too. Yeah.
But it's just to correct us, it's and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but it's Skábma, Skábma.
Skábma, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
with
that's why
above the A. I've just looked on Google to try and find the pronunciation, but it doesn't give me much because it tries to then take me to like a Finnish. It's saying yes, this is a Sami word,
yeah,
but then it's trying to translate it into Finnish or
right.
other. It's then telling me about the Proto-Germanic difference,
right,
and stuff like this. So one to go to the devs directly on to ask them how it's actually pronounced,
because it's the same accented A as in Sami, so I think it's Skábma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am worried about my pronunciation of the various things. I tried to pick it up from the game's voiceovers, but yeah.
I think from Google, and again, I don't know if this is correct. Google suggests it means darkness, or translates as darkness. I don't know whether that theme kind of comes across within the game.
Well, the weird rot / disorder of the land is like purpley black,
right?
Coding. Like you meet tree spirits who you can now talk to, and they're like, it's like the roots of this tree feel so dark, I might have to find another one. And then on the bottom of the tree, it'll be like this inky blackness. So
yeah, fair. Nice, good. It sounds good though. It sounds like something I'd absolutely jump into.
And we were just talking the other week about adventure games, and I was like, oh yes, this is scratching that itch that I didn't realize I had. Okay. I mean, not the adventure game I was describing, but like the adventure game sort of. And it was, to be honest, like. It was nice to still be the sort of I want to wander around looking for things a la Elden Ring, but not have to dodge roll. And you know, like I like you know, I like the try and discover. Don't just do the through line approach to games. It's why I often find boundary breaks and stuff. Yep. But you know, sometimes you don't want to play a complex game, but you want to explore, and this scratched that itch really well because there's the rewards, right? Like I found bunny number 9, and all the other ones seemed to run in order. I'm like, oh, I think maybe I'll come back here, and that's when I'm supposed to find it. I also did sequence break a couple of times the narrative, which is mild, just because I explored and like it was like it didn't make sense because they're like, oh, but now you will do this. It's like I did that. You know, small things like that, but nothing like game breaking. It's just like, oh yeah, the narrative was not. It's hard to write when you allow open exploration. You have to write everything with a malleable sense of what if they did this before this, and that's very hard to do. And there was only a couple times I'm like, you didn't think that I would have done this because you are assuming I'm gonna do this, but I'm also the guy who's like. The game shows you the deer went that way. I got up. I'm like, my character doesn't know this. Let's go this way, right? Like, but it was only a couple times. Like I said, it was minor voice lines. There was nothing like, it wasn't like, it was like immersion sequence breaking rather than gameplay. Like I never couldn't do anything. I just clearly didn't do the sequence and I wanted it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Nice. Sounds good. Sounds very positive. It's on sale at the moment. It's just released, so it's on sale for the next 48 hours.
Oh.
So podcast listeners, it will
Sorry.
be back at full price probably by the time that you.
Yeah, sorry. The one thing I do need to complain about is it's not in early access. It came out, and I constantly got a big wipe input error with a bunch of code stuff. To the point where I was playing on gamepad and I just had my mouse just had my mouse on that spot, so when it came up I could just hit the left click and close the thing, and it was really frustrating because I was enjoying it. I was on stream. Obviously it's frustrating with an error, and I realized that because we got a code for review potentially before it came out, timing, I wanted to stream it instead. So I switched builds to the one we got, the code base we originally got halfway through the stream, and it still was happening.
Okay.
So but I didn't, when I realized I didn't have that code base, like, but I'm on the gold, like I'm on the one they're selling to people live. That should be okay. Got this error a couple times. So I was like, let me double check, and same thing. And I don't know if it was my controller, but it's just an Xbox controller wired in. So, but it's this giant. It takes up like almost 2/3 of the screen, and it's like view input, and then just a whole bunch of gobbledygook. But it's bright. It's a white box with giant button that says close. And then when the first like third of the game is like navigating through cave systems in the dark, and you're like,
just blinded.
I literally got blinded the first time it happened. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Snowfall. That's what the Snowfall is, obviously.
But yeah, so hopefully they figure out what that is. But that was my only complaint. I mean, it's an error that doesn't break anything, and because it's not like a twitchy game, you can close it. But it did occur, I would say, at least 7 times in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like more than it should.
Known bug.
Yeah.
It's happening that often.
Okay.
Anyway, I still recommend it. I just hope that they figure that out.
Nice. We've very easily eaten up our hour for the episode. I just want to check in with you, Lucy, because I know a couple of weeks ago you'd kind of got to a point where you're like, I haven't really played very much.
And we're still there. Literally nothing. I've been very bad. I haven't played a single thing.
No. Sometimes it's nice to have that break.
I'm in a lull period at the
I've not played anything new. I basically had like a comfort week where I played a little bit of Dorf Romantique. I played a little bit of Vampire Survivors, and I finished Horizon Forbidden West.
Oh, nice!
All very games where I'm like, this is just nice. I just enjoy playing this. I'll talk probably more about Horizon next week, because again, who knows if I'll have any time to play any actual new games within the week. I know Lucy we'll talk more in depth about Dorf Romantique as well at some point in the coming weeks. But that's it, I think, then, for the games that we have been playing. Let's bounce back to the beers that we have just drunk. Lucy.
Still got a lot of it left. I was
say, I can imagine you had a little bit left from the way you were describing it.
What's that? Probably half a pint, because that's 2/3 glass. It's heavy. As I say, it's very fruity. I think strangely, it's actually gotten nicer the more it's warmed up.
Okay.
Which is not usually what I associate with like beers that doubles you probably want to drink a bit warmer, but once it goes past room temperature, it's like
you still want it to be maybe like 8 or slightly, 10 degrees, don't you?
Yeah, but this is like fine, because it is just like drinking juice, like absolute juice. But yeah, it is nice. It's like it's one you can savor, and it didn't have much carbonation to begin with, or like a lot of crispness at the start. So it's like it's one you can savor, and I've been enjoying it. Yeah, it's just, it's a bit like a marathon. This
that's fair.
But yeah,
Sometimes
it's
you have those
nice, really fruity. Like all
Good.
those tropical fruits, just absolutely like come to the forefront, and it's good.
Good.
But, yeah.
For me, the VarVar APA stayed very similar to those initial flavors. It didn't develop more than a bit of a grapefruit kind of kick, a little bit of citrus just floating in the background, and then that nice piney finish. The piney finish, I think, was the kind of like the standout flavor for it, because it kind of kicks in quite heavily and sticks around. You know, it's a lovely lasting kind of finish, but very very easy. A little bit too flat for me, perhaps. Just wanted that little bit, just that little bit of a kick, that little kind of bit more fizz to it. I think would have added just a little extra layer in there. But yeah, an absolutely fine beer, which is kind of the best thing I can say about it. Yeah. Aadil, how about the Black IPA?
I really liked it. I just finished it, and I would have finished it sooner if it wasn't for the fact that I was talking for most of this hour. I will say, as I got through it, I think I lost some of the tropical. The balance kind of went off on the last quarter of the beer, where it felt a little more of the acrid roasted flavors were lingering more, and that I think because that tropical was so light of touch that once my palate got acclimatized to it, I could, you just stop sensing it in that sense. So I feel like the first 2/3 of this beer were really great and interesting, and then I even stopped sipping it for a while and came back, and it was still like, oh, I'm getting more of those acrid. This is more like a the interesting part's not coming out anymore, and that's mildly frustrating and disappointing. But it's still a really good beer, and I mean, who knows? Palates are palates, but I would still, I think, seek it out, and maybe other things Coolhead has done, because it was such a unique beer, and for most of the beer, I was getting that uniqueness all the way through. But yeah, like I said, I gotta say what I gotta say, which is just unfortunately, the last few sips were just huh. Where's that thing? Where's the magic?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a big white square appeared in the middle of a really interesting. Oh, the other thing I want to say about Skábma is you beat the drum to do the thing, and you have different. The game has different drumming riffs depending on where you are. But just because you're constantly beating the drum while you're going through, and it's a very simple mechanic, but it does make you feel like you're doing a thing, and it really does work, and it does get the sense of, I don't know, it really heightened things, the fact that you're using a drum to do this, and the thing you're using the drum is a broken piece of antler of the reindeer who inadvertently saved your life because you landed on it when you both fell. Yeah, just nice touches, and the sound scoring is really good, and yeah, I didn't mention that before, so anyway.
Fair. And when you are drumming, is it kind of like Ocarina of Time, where you're just inputting directional buttons?
No, it's just LB or RB, and then what's mostly frustrating is they're hit this to drum, and you're like, oh, I have to hit this, and then it lights things up, and so you're like, oh, and then after a while it fades, so I have to hit it. So I just was doing this for a while, and then a later tooltip is hold RB, and you're like, oh. And I it's clearly planned, because it does feel like you're doing the thing when you first get to know it, and I like that I'm annoyed with myself that I never tried holding it down until the tooltip came, but I really like that move. Again, there's a playfulness in the development that I really like of this game, and that's a good version, that's a good proof of that, because that's just, hey, we could do something interesting by only sort of telling the players the cumbersome way when you were new to it, and then saying, there's a shortcut in a bit, and the tooltips are making the experience totally different, even though it's oh yeah, they can tap it or they can hold it, but you just hold it, right? That's the game. The game is just hold it. So, yeah,
nice. If you have played any kind of action games or any other games that you want to talk to us about, go to @TankSupCast over on Twitter and let us know, or hit one of us up to come and join us in the Discord and chat with us on a daily basis about the games and the beers that we are consuming. You can hit me up at Nova_47. Lucy is...
My handle was bought by Elon Musk. It used to be juicy, these 9. Don't you?
That's it. But he's had it. He's consuming everything, isn't he? Just taking over everything. Aadil, how do we get hold of
I'm at the Omniarch on all of the things.
until Elon Musk gets hold of that one as well?
Well, yeah.
Nothing is.
I started
safe
using
in his
Instagram a bit
grubby
more.
Fucking hands, is it really?
Yeah, you've retreated to Instagram where there are less problems.
Well, it's also there's no discourse on Instagram, at least.
Yes,
Really.
which is turns out it's the best thing. Human discourse.
Yeah.
Overrated,
I agree.
says the person who's on a podcast. But, you know.
Yeah. So you know firsthand.
You should also go over to outoflives.net and come to our YouTube page and listen to us over on Twitch as well. Stick around for our next episode 320, where we'll be getting into a topic this week. But for episode 319, we have been tagged up. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao.
www.outoflives.net